Hey everybody, I'm Bob Bakert with Jazz Guitar Today, and we're here with Dave Miner. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm real good. I'm glad to see you. I love your office.
Yeah, it's messy, but it's full of guitars.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I'm looking at one, two, three. I'm looking at five guitars like right now, so I can appreciate that. So, so,
I'm not going
so
to tell you how many I have in here. It's kind of embarrassing.
well, are they out of cases though?
Well, a few of them are, yeah.
Yeah, I've got. Let me see, one, two. I've got three out of the case, so that's a good thing. Anyway, so for people who don't know who you are, um, I got to know you obviously through Benedetto. You're one of the you're one of the investors in Benedetto. I guess that's a good way to put it.
Yes.
You and Howard, I think, have the uh, pretty good stake in that company. But you come through this to this businesses, which is the couple of things I want to talk to you about is how did you know the passion. I know you've got a collection. You're a player yourself. You're an impresario. You actually produce concerts at the winery. We'll talk about that in a minute. So there's so many things. There's so many. You're such like an onion. Peel back the layers. So I guess let's get started. Where did your passion with? I don't normally have this kind of an interview. I don't normally talk. We don't normally go into history, but where did your passion in guitar get started?
Uh, I mean, when I was a kid growing up, I took piano lessons, like probably most people did, which I flunked out of after a while because I wasn't practicing. And, my mom had my brother and I in every sport known to man. And between school and sports and, practicing piano wasn't a huge priority. Um, but my aunt was a cellist, and music was all around it growing up as a kid. And my piano teacher's son had this giant archtop Gretsch
Oh
that was
man.
that just kind of blew my mind while I was in there taking lessons. I'm like, well, what's that? Oh,
I want one of those.
yeah. So, my brother started playing guitar and taking lessons, and I just started picking up his guitars and goofing around and trying to make noise that sounded good. So, I mean, it started pretty early, and, I really bought my own first guitar at like 13, 14 years old. I had to borrow money from my brother. I'm pretty sure I still haven't paid him back.
Do you remember the first lick you ever learned how to play on guitar?
I think the first tune I learned how to play was Wild Horses by the Rolling Stones.
Well, you probably can't hear this as a Telecaster, but that lick, that ba ba ba. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't hear it.
Oh, I'm
But
sorry. It's I can't remember the name of that tune. It was like it's just a hammer on E minor thing. It's just like But at any rate, you
I might
learn
have
wild
learned
horses.
Smoke on the Water too. Like,
Yeah. Well, that just talks about sign of the times. But actually, wild horses. That's pretty complex for like first tune to come out of the gate on. So it's
yeah,
pretty.
I mean, I think that might have been the first tune that I learned like start to finish, where I could play the whole song.
Did you play in rock bands and stuff coming along?
I didn't. My brother had rock bands. I never played in a band. I played a lot of tennis. I played competitive tennis, so that kind of prevented me from like actually going to band practice and things like that.
Right.
So I mean, I played with people, like we'd get together and do little guitar duets at parties and stuff. And I'm pretty sure that primarily we picked up the guitar to impress girls.
Well, yeah.
So
I mean, I mean, if that ain't a given for guys, from my age and on, that's the given. I mean, there's no question about that. Which I always ask, I always ask the girls, when I interview them, well, how did you get started? Well, they don't say to impress the boys. I think they got a whole different thing. But yeah, and for a lot of guys, it was the Beatles, and for me, it was Rick Nelson.
Yeah.
Ricky Nelson, because I'd watch him on television on whatever Sunday night or whatever it was, and he'd be playing the music on the guitar, and all those girls are sitting there looking at him. I thought, I want to be that guy. That's the guy I want to be.
Yeah, it's just a powerful impetus to
Well, yeah, and it continues to be. For some of us anyway, um, us single guys, at any
yeah,
rate,
I mean, I didn't play in a band, but I did grow up playing more rock and blues based stuff, or I was influenced by Southern California kind of folk rock stuff,
mhm.
Jackson Brown and things like that.
Doctor,
um
my eyes have seen the years and a soul paraded tears without crying.
yeah so yeah, all that kind of stuff. And I think the first time I heard Joe Pass was the first time I really, like my brain exploded. It's like, whoa, how's he doing that?
Nobody still knows.
It's
Nobody still has figured that one out. How is he doing that? What's going on there?
yeah.
So okay, so fast forward, you were in Chicago.
Yeah, I was in Chicago until I was 13, and then moved to Southern California. My dad got a new job, moved us to Orange County,
Yeah.
Southern California, which was like going to a different planet from the suburbs of Chicago. But
Hmm.
I quickly discovered, the beach and surfing and, girls in bikinis almost year round. And so it took the pain away from, like moving away from all your friends when you're 13. But so
Oh,
yeah, I've been in California since 1973, basically,
yeah.
and moved around and went to college in San Diego, where, by the way, I got to Joe Pass used to come down and play at Ilario's restaurant, which was in the Summer House Inn in La Jolla,
Hmm.
and played 3 or 4 nights a week for, like once a quarter. And I'd go in every night and see him. And it was just, I mean, it was amazing, the bands and musicians that went through that little place.
What year was that? What years was that?
That was early 80s,
All
early
right.
80s.
Okay. Well, then Joe
I was
was
a
Joe.
perpetual college student. I was in college for like 10 years.
Yeah. Well, I started college in the '70s, and I took a class as late as 2 years ago. So I've taken it. We don't even go there. I've studied more subjects than I think there are subjects to study, but that's a whole other story. So and then I think it was '93, you got into the wine business with your uncle,
Yes, I'd been working in the software business when I got out of college.
right?
So I got out of college in 88, 89. So I was 28, 29 years old. Went to work for Oracle, the software company, which was, my uncle Bob was one of the founders of Oracle.
Right.
And my brother had worked there, he worked there for 30 years as a programmer. But I was, more of a sales guy. So I did sales for Oracle for 4 or 5 years, and then did a little startup with some ex-Oracle guys. Ended up living in Houston, Texas, because we sold the company to a company in Texas.
Right.
And about then, my uncle was ill, and he had this small winery, and he and I were really wine drinking buddies. And he was a big jazz supporter. In fact, he he probably kept SF Jazz alive for many years with personal donations, and um, consequently, the theater at SF Jazz is named after him. It's the Robert N. Miner Auditorium. So he and I would go see a lot of jazz shows together, drink wine together, play tennis together, and so he was one of my best friends, really. And he was sick, and he had a small winery, and he knew I loved wine and I could sell shit. So he called me and said,
Wait a minute, stop right there. I'm gonna put that, that's like your resume. He knew I loved wine and I could sell shit. I mean, that's it.
those were my qualifications to
That's
it.
all you need. That's all you need. Please keep going. I had to stop right there because I went, oh my God, I love wine and I can sell shit. Oh
Well,
man.
and so he called and said, "Hey, do you want to come run the winery? I'm going to fire the guy who's running the winery."
Yeah.
And I already knew that he was probably not going to make it. It was pretty obvious,
Right.
and so my mind was like, what am I doing with myself? I didn't hate my job. It was an interesting job, but it wasn't something I wanted to do the rest of my life.
Right.
And I'd lost other family members at very young ages. So
Yeah.
all of those things really made me contemplate, what I really want to do. And at that point, I was like, well, I mean, this is an opportunity I can't really pass up because I can see myself making wine the rest of my life. I really don't want to sell software the rest of my life.
Right.
So I did. I quit my job and moved back to California, moved in with them for a while with my Uncle Bob and his wife. And because I had a house in California, but I was renting it to someone, so I couldn't move back into it. So I lived with them for a while and took over in his winery, which was Oakville Ranch Winery, which still exists today. His
Yeah.
widow still has it. It's very small, maybe 1,000 cases, but they still make beautiful wines.
Mm.
And so I came back and ran that, and then I started my own label, Minor Family Winery, when I met my wife in the wine business, and we started that together. And been kind of running a million miles an hour ever since.
Oh. I, I'm trying to figure out how to put this. You're a man of substance, you know, and I don't want to embarrass you. I'm not talking about that. And I mean, I know that you invested obviously heavily in Benedetto guitars, which is I mean, where does that fall into your life? Is that is that a real business venture for you? Is it a hobby for you? I don't mean to make I'm trying to ask embarrassing questions. Is it
No,
is it a mission of love? Is it where does, because I mean, if people want to Google, if they don't know about Minor Family Wine, I mean, you have one of the top wineries in the U.S., if not in the world. I mean, the quality of the product that comes out of your place. I mean, we're not talking about, we're talking about some serious, serious, serious stuff. And I know that I mean, you're a man of means and a man of substance, and you've done incredibly well. The wine, it's you're, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to put this without embarrassing you or saying something stupid. But now, but the passion, the investment, both emotionally and financially in the guitar world, where does that where does that fit in your life, and where do you see all that? I mean, how does all that come together? If I can, I'm asking a huge. I don't have a real question here. I'm kind of.
yeah, no. I mean, I get asked that question, pretty often, and it's definitely a passion for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's a pretty broad question, but I mean, in a lot of ways, I crave things that are made by human beings, that have value and quality.
Right.
And both in winemaking and in guitar making, they're very similar passions, I think, because you're taking natural products that really don't have significant, value in and of themselves, and you turn them into something that's beautiful, that's complex, that makes people happy and encourages deep conversation, and also makes people sound amazing,
Right.
and create something special. And to me, that's a very magical thing, and it's a very different thing than um, making soda pop, or uh, you know making McDonald's hamburgers, or
Uh,
pounding out 1,000 guitars a day.
yeah.
Um, and I'm not saying that there's something bad about those things, but it's
Right.
just a completely different thing.
Well, that's a production facility, not an artisan based um, enterprise.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, human expression is something that I crave,
Yeah.
and I was also an English literature major in college, and none of these things really make money. By the way, they're not really profitable ventures.
Oh, you know
But
about Jazz Guitar Today magazine. Okay. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I mean, that's the thing. We do this because we love doing this,
Yeah.
and I get a tremendous amount of joy out of seeing people enjoy my wine with a meal, or hearing somebody great play a Benedetto guitar, and uh, and introducing these things to people that I also love and care about, that maybe haven't had the opportunity to hear,
Right.
Homero Labambo or Chico Pinheiro, or you know and you do the same thing. You bring people on your show who are probably not household names anywhere, but
Mhm.
they're American artists. They're people who make life more interesting, more valuable.
Yeah.
And to
I
me,
use
that's a wonderful thing.
I use the phrase "I'm a big fish in a puddle."
Yeah,
It's
a
like
muddy puddle.
the muddy puddle. Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, in this the very, 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 very little world. Um, how many acres of grapes do you have?
Interestingly, we don't have a lot of our own vineyards. I mean, when I first started, my uncle's ranch has about 70 acres of grapes, and I
Hmm.
was managing that at the time. And right about the time I was starting my own label, I kind of parted ways with my aunt a little bit, and so I went from like 70 acres that were under my management to only a handful of acres that were on my vineyard, at
Right.
my house, or at the winery. So we buy grapes primarily from other growers, but
Yeah. Well, that's
most
not
of the
unusual.
relationships we've had with growers go back to, the mid 70s, late
Right.
or mid 90s, 95, 97. Uh, and I actually get grapes not just from Napa Valley, but from Monterey, from
Uh-huh.
Paso Robles, from Mendocino, from different areas of California where different grape varieties do better.
Right.
Napa Valley is very specific about what can really grow there, and be optimal.
Right.
And things like Pinot Noir, or strange Rhone varietals, are not really optimum here in Napa, nor are they cost efficient for the expense of the land.
Right.
So
Yeah. Go up to Willamette Valley for that. Um, well, that's not unusual in the wine industry, as you know. I mean, I know that you know that. So how in what on the wine end of things, what is your involvement in that? Are you doing the sales? Are you doing the management? Are you a vintner yourself? Or I'm sure some people at least like to have an idea of where you.
yeah, I mean, when I first started, I was running my uncle's winery, and we had a consulting winemaker, we had a vineyard manager, and it was just me and my office manager, and we
Right.
ran the whole thing. So I'm actively involved in blending everything we produce, finding the vineyard sources that we use. I used to be actively involved in the day-to-day winemaking, the
Mhm.
the chemistry, the purchasing barrels, corks, glass.
Right.
Over the years, as we've gotten larger, I've farmed most of those things off to other people, but I'm
Right.
still actively involved in, vineyards, blending of grapes,
Sure.
uh, choosing, quality of glass, the label design, all of that stuff. So,
Well, obviously you're doing it right because of the quality of the product that you're producing.
well, and winemaking is first and foremost farming and
Right.
partnering with really good farmers who aren't necessarily sane people.
Right.
The best farmers to me are the crazy ones because they're not, if you farm like an accountant, your wine is going to taste like it was made by an accountant. And unfortunately, a huge amount of
Oh,
wine in the US
oh,
is
I,
made by
I grew
accountants.
up in Western New York, and yeah, there's a lot of farming, believe it or not, in Western New York, a lot of grapes in Western New York. And
Yep.
and I know a lot of crazy ass people. I also know people in the horse industry, and there's a lot of crazy people in that industry as well. I think anytime you get in the art world, but hey, talk to any of these 10 guys that build guitars, man. I mean that you got to love these guys. You know,
Yep.
you got to, but they're definitely outliers in society. I mean, they're not, they're all unique personalities. So let's bring it to the guitar. Okay, so here you are. I I happen to remember somebody telling me you've got a world-class guitar collection. Um,
I have a lot of guitars. It's a bit embarrassing. Uh, and the only thing that keeps me from thinking I'm completely out of my mind is that I do know people that have more guitars than me. So, uh,
all right.
I do collect things. I like art, and
Uh,
um, I have weird collections of things. I have hand knapped knives made by guys who knap stone into blades or arrowheads and things like that. I have a big collection of those things. Um, I like books. I collect like first edition books and old, hard to find books, and so. But most of these things I like to either read or play, or I
sure.
do play the guitar. I'm not, I have good ears, but I'm not a well schooled musician. If you
Uh-huh.
stick music in front of me, it'll take me a week to figure it out. I
Well,
can't sight read,
a lot
but
of lot of lot of guys can't read. I mean, it's the years. Years are everything.
but
The years are everything. Just like your palate is everything. You can, I mean, let's here's a simple, parallel. You want a guy, making your wine like an accountant, you know?
no,
So he chemically he knows what the hell's going on, but it's going to taste like it was made by an accountant. Same
yes,
thing with music. You don't give a shit if the guy can read music or not. What's it sound like? That's the important thing. It's in.
yeah, and I mean, at an early age, I fell in love with the beauty of really nice instruments.
Oh yeah.
I was familiar with Benedetto guitars long before I ever met Bob.
Hmm.
Um, but when I was younger, I couldn't really afford a Benedetto, and I couldn't see the point in owning a Benedetto. But as I got older and I had a little more money to spend, and um, I started buying different things or having guitars custom made,
Yeah.
uh, whether
What
they
is
were
your
flat tops or whatever. I mean, I don't just have arch tops. I have guitars across the board. I have regular solid body electric guitars. I've got flat top acoustic
you
guitars. I've
mean
got
like
classic.
these?
Yeah, I used to have a Fender Telly until I got two of Damon Mylan's Tellys,
Uh-huh.
and then I gave my Fender away.
Yeah. Yep. There are a lot
But
of guys out there that make amazing instruments. So you've got Fender. You have somebody told me that you have some a pretty nice collection of Martin guitars.
yes, and that's been fluctuating a little bit. But yeah, I somehow ended up with three old D28s. So I had a 37, which I recently sold,
Uh-huh.
a 42, which is probably my favorite, and a 48, which I've promised to a friend of mine who lives in Nashville, who's been a Gibson guy his whole life, and now he wants a Martin, and he's played this 48 that I've got, and so he's selling a couple guitars so he can buy it from me, and I'm,
You know, I think 1942 was a great year for Martin guitars. I don't know. I was in Gruen Guitar one day at Nashville NAMM because I was in the industry for a long time.
Always a fun place to be.
It was a fun place to be. I went upstairs and I'm playing a bunch of different guitars and I see this Martin on the wall and I pick it up. It's an old triple O, you know, 41 or something like that. I pick it up and I'm going, oh, holy shit. This thing sounds amazing. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm sitting there playing this thing and I'm going, this thing sounds amazing. And I'm playing it. I'm playing it and I'm playing it and I'm playing it. And I'm getting a crowd around me because all of a sudden, you know, I guess I was doing pretty good. And then George comes out of his office and watching what I'm doing, listening to what I'm doing. And I'm going, shit, if this thing's 15, because at the time, if this thing's $15,000, I'm taking it home. Now, I don't have your resources. I don't mean to embarrass you, but I don't. And I said, this thing's $15,000, I'm taking it home. And I'm playing, I'm going, man, if this thing's $20,000, I'm taking it home. And I finally see the mini pearl price tag, you know, with the headstock, you know. It was $100,000. It was $100,000. And I said, I'm not taking it home. I put that guitar down so fast. I said, sweetheart, I love you, but you and I are not meant to be. And but it was I believe it was a 42. So what is
this one? I think is I can't remember what it is. I think it's a 37 or it could be a 29.
They're amazing.
That guitar actually I bought from Martin Taylor.
Oh, okay.
Jazz guitarist from Scotland.
Yeah, sure, of course.
It was a gift to him from Scott Chinnery for playing the blue guitar collection in a concert. And Scott gave him this. It's a 0045. And Martin, bless his heart, you know, he's like, you know, I don't really play this guitar. It's not the style of guitar I normally play.
Wow.
He was going to auction it off, or he tried to auction it off through Christie's or something. And, you know, it didn't sell.
Right.
And I said, well, I think I need to own it. So I bought it from him.
So the one I was playing was a 41. That's a 45 that you got in your hands, I believe. Right?
It's a 0045, but it's from the late 20s, I think.
Right. Gorgeous.
So I think before they made a 14 fret, they only made the 12 fret slot head,
which I think is the best sounding of all the guitars, all the flat top.
The 12 for acoustics too. I mean, I actually, honestly, I have all these dreadnought guitars, and I don't play them as often as I play the smaller. You know, I have some old Larson Brothers guitars as well, and some modern copies of those old Larson guitars. So I like the small body guitars. They're super comfortable to play.
The 12 fret guitars to me are the best sounding flat top guitars, period. And the other thing that they do, because I'm a singer, the other thing that they do is they blend better with my voice than any 14 fret guitar does. And I just love them. I mean, I
love them too. And I mean, I have good 14 fret acoustics as well. I've got a custom made Olson.
Yeah.
You know, I've got an OM Collings that's a Brazilian that is just a wonderful sounding guitar as well. But you know, it's
one of my favorite guitars that I own is a Collings. I've got it's an electric guitar, an I-35, and it's a spectacular instrument. So would you say that your collection is more heavily in arch tops, or is it pretty evenly divided, or?
Yeah, it's more heavily arch tops, and obviously I have a lot of Benedettos. So
yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I mean
that's like saying I have a lot of Ferraris or I have a lot of Lamborghinis, or you know. Okay, well, I can see why you would have a lot of that. That's all right.
And it's moderately embarrassing, to be honest with you. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's more than probably anyone has.
Well, the one guitar that you have that I absolutely fell in love with was the one that you had at the Rocky Mountain Arch Top Festival, the one that Bob had personally, I don't want to say he relicked it, but it definitely has an age.
Yeah, it's the 50th anniversary Benedetto 17-inch all acoustic, amazing guitar.
that guitar, that guitar. Well, I mean, what do you say? It spoke to me. That guitar spoke to me. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
no, it's one of the finest acoustic art shop guitars I've ever played, and I've played a lot of them.
well, you played more than I have, and I played a lot too. And that is the fine. To me, that if that was like I told you when I was there, I said if I had to take one home, can't sell it. This is the one I got to play. You know what I mean? Not an investment. I got to actually take it to the gig and play. That would be the guitar.
Yeah,
It just does what it's supposed to
and
do.
I don't. I mean, I know there are a lot of collectors that just like putting shit into a glass case and hanging it
Yeah,
on the wall. That I don't really believe in that with
right.
anything, with wine or with guitars. I mean,
No,
for me, they're all meant to be played.
supposed to
I've
drink
got
it.
an old classical that was owned by Pepe Romero, both the old man and the son, that I just got like a couple of years ago. And it's super
Right.
lightweight, and obviously it's been played a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
if I want to play nylon, I freaking love that guitar. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Let's talk about guitars, more specifically. You know, the Benedetto company, your involvement, what you wanted, what you foresee for for that company and that. I mean, uh, what the future of Benedetto guitars? What is it that you want to? What do you want to see happen to the Benedetto Guitar Company? I mean, are you trying to grow it to be the size of Fender? I mean, I know you're not, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
You
No,
know,
that's
what is it that what is it that what legacy over and above what Bob, created? What do you want to create for the Benedetto Company?
well. I mean, first and foremost, at this point, I would love it to like make a little money or break even. But I'm not looking to get rich doing this or anything. But I would love for it to just kind of pay for itself.
Well, so you have a magazine called Jazz Guitar Today. I get it. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, people.
So,
I
but
if I may say this, I'm sorry that people don't understand what it would take to put together a magazine like this, and why I don't worry about competition, because no businessman in his right mind would ever would ever invest in this thing. But that's a
exactly.
whole other story. Yeah, from what I can tell on the Benedetto guitars, that you're taping checks on each one that goes out the door.
Yeah, I mean, it's always slim pickings, but I mean, the goal ultimately is, uh, to preserve the legacy that Bob Benedetto has created. I
Right.
mean, obviously, he's at a point in his life where he's not carving guitars. I mean, we get him to do a few things here and there, but you know, we I want to preserve the quality and integrity that he's always had.
Right.
And I know Howard Paul feels the same way. I know Damon feels the same way.
Right.
And every guy that's working in that shop is there, for the same reason. Nobody builds guitars like us anymore. I mean, and other than someone who's like building one at a time and maybe builds 10 a year,
Mhm.
we're building maybe 90 or 100 a year.
Well,
And
the majority of the guys that build instruments of your quality, that's what they're doing. They're building 10 to 15 guitars a
yeah,
year. That's what they're doing.
and so uh, maintaining that level of quality and integrity is the key to everything that we do.
Right.
Um, and also, you know, like Bob, to pass that information along to the next generation and to keep, the next group of luthiers that come through our place, at least, in tune and in touch with that level of quality and that mentality and that
Right.
knowledge of how to make that work.
Right.
And it's like in wine too. Some people like want to keep everything they do secret, like they have some secret knowledge that nobody else has, which
Right.
is bullshit. I mean, but it's important to train and teach and pass on what you know.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you die with your, legacy.
Yeah. What's the point of it?
And for me, with wine too, I love people coming through my winery, and we make more types of wine than most wineries. So
Right.
we get people coming through, working in the cellar for a while, becoming an assistant winemaker or something like that, and then they have to move on and go somewhere else. And for me, that's as fulfilling as making really good wine, is seeing the quality of the people that come through our place, that learn, you know, different techniques, and then go off and do their own thing.
Yeah.
And that to me is meaningful. I mean, growing up, I always wanted to like teach literature and write and do those kinds of things.
Really.
To see, you know, people take what you can give them and then turn it into something even cooler. That to me is fun.
Well, what's really interesting about you guys, you're right. I mean, that to my knowledge, and I think I know what's going on. I can't promise I know what's going on. I could be deluding myself. But building 90 to 100 guitars a year, and the operative phrase here is at that quality. You know, at that level of craftsmanship, artisanship, etc., is unique. There's nobody else that does that. And the other thing that you guys have done, not only do you have, you know, my one of my guitars that I love to just look at it is the La Venezia,
Right.
which I just think is a spectacular instrument, which is a very traditional, traditional European based, if you will, instrument, coming from the cello slash violin family. But you guys have not only built, those guitars with the fratellos and so forth and so on, but obviously the Bambino Elite, the Bravo is a slightly different take on that. You build, I think, probably my favorite workaday high-end guitar, which is a 16B,
Yep.
which at 12,500 bucks, to have an instrument of that quality at that price. I mean, you to get an instrument like that from the guys that are doing them one at a time, they're not going to get them for 12,500 bucks. And
No, I mean
I don't
that's
believe, I could be wrong. And then you've got some other things. You got the Pat Martino model, which is gaining steam like crazy. I would the guy that's on the cover right now, Dan Wilson's playing one. Corey Christiansen's playing one. Um, uh, Barry Green's playing one. I mean, there's a ton of those things out there. Which is a unique instrument because it's a solid body, if you will. I'm going to call it solid body. It could be chamber, but it's a solid guitar, if you will. But it's got a voice, like an arch top. I mean, it's got
yep.
it fit. So you guys are building unique
Honestly, if
stuff
you
too.
wanted to, you could plug it into a tube amp with some pedals, and you could play blues on it. You could
Oh
play
yeah,
roll on it. It's a guitar that is extremely versatile and also priced accordingly. It's not a carb guitar. You don't have those hours of labor and intense.
No, they're 7,500 bucks. Obviously the Bambino. You got a whole bunch of unique instruments that are designed for a purpose and for a player, which is really really cool. And the thing is that people that own your instruments, because I talk to a lot of them, they're really passionate about. I mean, they're like Ferrari owners. They're they're very happy that there's a Ferrari. They're very happy that there's a Benedetto, in the house. That they're playing, whether they're a professional or whether they're an accomplished amateur, which in the old days, as you know, as an English lit major was more prestigious than being a professional. We're talking old days now.
Yeah.
But you guys are doing some amazing stuff. You're still the benchmark. I mean, it's the standard by which everything else is pretty much judged. I think anyway, specifically, for players' instruments, if you will. Obviously the art pieces, if you will, the Cremora, the Manhattan, and all of that. The tremendous instruments. So, what else would you want us to know about what you're doing?
Well, obviously with Benedetto guitars, we would love to spread the love more, and have more people playing Benedettos, and have more people get the opportunity to pick up a Benedetto and play a Benedetto. I mean, you mentioned that we do some Benedetto focused shows at the winery a couple times a year.
Hmm.
And I keep Benedettos hanging in the winery every day.
Right.
So I've got 5 hanging in the tasting room. There's 3 hanging in what we call the Benedetto lounge upstairs. I've got 5 hanging on the wall in my office. And some of them are standard model Benedettos, so that if somebody on the West Coast is around the Bay Area and they want to pick up and play a Benedetto, they can do that at Minor Family Winery. Um, and I'm happy to meet with people, let them play any of the guitars, plug them in, and check them out. Because really, we don't sell through dealers, and no dealers are going to hang 3 Benedettos on the wall anywhere.
No.
I mean, we used to try to sell through dealers, and people wouldn't, except for a couple of small mom and pop kind of places. It's impossible to find one and see one and pick one up.
Yeah. It's funny. The story of jazz guitar today was that I'll try to be brief, but so there's a bit of a parallel here. You're trying to save a legacy and all of that. I was a manufacturer's rep in the audio industry, and always been a guitar player. And so I went to NAMM for 30 years, more on the audio end of it, recording, sound reinforcement, concert sound, all that kind of thing. But we all, everyone now and then I'd pick up a line of, like I represented Gallagher-Kruger amplifiers and, some guitar related stuff. I had a couple of lines of guitars from now and then, but it was only for me, because that wasn't where we made our money. It was just be like you selling, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but you got corkscrews or something. You got a line of corkscrews, but that's not where you're making your money. That was kind of what guitars were for me. But it was fun because I like corkscrews. I
Yeah.
got to have some fun at home. So I retired from that, and I was working with Eastman Company a little bit. I said, you guys really should consider making a. I started for 5 or 6 years. I bugged the crap out about making a gypsy guitar. I said nobody's making a gypsy guitar that anybody can afford, and the only one that's out there is the Dell'Arte, and frankly, there's room.
Yeah.
And I bugged the crap out of Saul for like 6 years to do it, 5, 6 years to do it. Anyway, long and short of it is I went to work for them as kind of a captured consultant for a couple of years in my retirement, because I retired from the company that I had. And I got tasked with selling off jazz guitars, because that's what they were building. Now they started building Benedetto ripoffs, if you will, or copies, or whatever you want to call them. And the story that I heard was that Bob, gave him a book and said, here, go for it. If you can do it, do it. Anyway, the long and the short of that is that I could not give those things away. And it wasn't only Eastman guitars that nobody was selling. Nobody was talking about jazz guitars anywhere in the world. And when Just Jazz Guitar went out of business, when Ed decided to retire,
Yeah.
nobody was talking about it. So we had no place to advertise. We had no place to talk about it. We had nobody talking about it. We had nobody. I mean, nobody cared about it. It was a dead. So I knew that the music market, jazz as a whole was about 1.5 points of the whole music market. And I figured that at best, guitar was maybe 10% of that, at best. And so I said, that really sucks. And I won't mention any names, but 2 of the largest one of the largest, most famous guitar players in the world said to a friend, he said, do not name your club a jazz club. It'll kill it. You can't do it. And then Rick Beato, who's a friend of mine, said, if I put jazz in the title of any of my videos, it kills it. Nobody wants. Yeah. So I thought, okay, well, I tried to give away guitars. Because I was a university student for a while. I studied jazz guitar at Georgia State in my 60s. And I knew that these kids were all coming to class with tellies. No one was playing ES 175s or anything like that, and they couldn't afford an L5, let alone a Benedetto. And so I said, let's do something about this. So I I I called up a whole bunch of educators and I said, look, I will sell to your students. This was an ES 175. I will sell them at a price that was like, I'm talking pennies. I mean, I am talking, this is lunch money. If they will sign a document that, that you sign a document that says that these are a student at this university, at this school. I try to put some, some conditions on it to, have some legitimacy. Bottom line on that is that I not one person, and I probably had 15 or 20 schools that I had spoken to, not one person took me up on it.
Huh.
So that's where jazz guitar was when we decided to start this magazine. I said, there's got to be something that we can do to do better. So the whole point of the magazine was to pull this uniquely American art form, because as you know, Lloyd Loar was an American. That not only is blues, the blues is not only is that an art, that is an American art form, but people don't understand that the archtop guitar is solely American.
Yeah.
And so we're going to let this thing die. Well, not on my watch. I was going to do what I could do, and so that's how it got started. So that's how the magazine got started. And I'd like to think, I'm not trying to pat ourselves on the back, but I'd like to think we've had something to do with at least, creating the discussion, getting some people. The best letter I got, I tell people this all the time. I got a letter from a guy who said, "You make me proud to be a jazz guitar player again." And I thought, wow, I can't do better than that. And so when you talk about preserving the legacy of the Benedetto company, that just goes right to my heart, because that is what it's all about. And you're not doing it to get rich on guitars. I
No, I'm doing it to get poorer every day.
yeah, what do they say? How to make $10 million. Start with 5, or start 10, maybe start with 20.
Yeah, it's the big joke in the wine business too. How do you make a small fortune in the wine business? You
Yeah,
start
start with a
with
big
a big
one.
one.
Yeah.
People think
Well,
it's super funny, and when you
it,
do it, it's not that funny.
it's no, it's not. It's not funny at all. But it's the same thing. So we're all kind of in this together, trying to make a difference, if you will. And I so appreciate what you're doing, because I do understand where the passion is, why the passion is there, where it comes from, the commitment that you have to make, the kind of heart you have to say, that's an important thing. I ain't going to make any money at this, but it speaks to me, and that's what matters. And then you just go ahead and do it. And man, I got to tell you, my hat's off. If I was a drinking man, well, I am a drinking man, but
I mean, the the typical American approach to this would be, let's go make these in, Asia, and, make 1,000 of them a day and make them look, flashy, and sell 1 million of them, and make a shitload of money, and
boy, does that piss me off.
yep. And that's not the way to make a great instrument, I mean,
Boy, it pisses me off.
it's not the way to make great anything. It's not the way to make great wine either. There's there's a million examples of people who have grown so large that they no longer resemble what they once resembled as winemakers. And
Right.
there's no way you can make 1 million cases of something and have it taste as good as when you're making 200 cases of something. And the culture of wine in particular in Europe is very different than it is in the US, because you have all these people who are maybe 14th generation,
Right.
working with, 10 acres of grapes and making unbelievably great wine, because that's what they do.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love those people.
there's a bigger market for their wines. I mean, those guys can sell their wines all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
The US, my only market is the US,
Right.
because I can't really sell wine in Europe. I
Right.
can't sell wine in Australia. I I can sell a little wine in Asia, but it's,
Uh-huh.
insignificant amounts.
Right.
But it's the parallels between the two businesses are remarkable in just what it takes to make the best instruments, and is that feasible? And it's certainly not scalable
Right.
to the point where you know you're
When
making
I
200 guitars a, a,
well,
a
you're
week.
in the I'm gonna really go off the reservation here a little bit. In the 80s, when I became a manufacturer's rep, I represented Crown Amplifiers, which was made in Elkhart, Indiana. I represented Atlas Soundelier, which was made in St. Louis. I represented EAW, which was up in Massachusetts. I represented companies from all over the United States, and we'd go to sales meetings once a year. We'd go to the factories and sales, and we would go to Elkhart, Indiana, and we would have our meeting in Elkhart, Indiana, and we'd go visit the factory, which was in Elkhart, Indiana. We would shake the hands of the people in Elkhart, Indiana, who were making one at a time, not one at a time, but modern, if you will, amplifiers, for the industry. And these people were made. So I represented over 600 companies in a 30-year career. Now, admittedly, a lot of those towards the end were Asian, but over the time that I was there, I saw every one of those companies move out and outsource the manufacturing to Asia. And all those people in the Midwest and all those people no longer employed gainfully making quality product. And these products were, I mean, if you go buy a 1970s Crown amplifier, I mean, the faceplate on that thing is a work of art. I mean, just for an example, and if you go buy one of their products today, God bless them. I mean, I saw the circuit boards. Those circuit boards that are in the products that are coming out of Asia today, we wouldn't put those in toys in the 60s and 70s. It was a joke. I'm sorry. I probably should edit myself on all this, but boy, nothing pisses me off more. And when you take quality products that people have put their life into and designing and developing and all of that, and then did you ever read a book called The Walmart Effect?
No, but I can imagine what it
If you
is.
ever want to get pissed off, if you ever just want to get a bad mood right away, just go get that book. It's an older book. It's been around for 20 years or so.
I fight with the bad mood every day, Bob.
Yeah, well, I'm talking to you. We're having fun. This is the happiest I am all day, by the way.
Perfect. Me too.
This is it. It's all downhill from here. All right. So last thing I'm going to talk to you about. Do you still play tennis?
Yes, I played twice this week, and I try to keep up with my 35-year-old pro at the local club, and I have to say my game is pretty good right now. I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Do you ever play pickleball?
I played once about a week ago, and I probably will not be going back to it. I mean, I get why people like it, and it's fun, and it's kind of social and everything like that. But
Yeah, it's not tennis.
It's
I play pickleball every day. I used to play.
It's like playing wiffle ball in your backyard because you're so bored you got nothing else to do.
Yeah,
Instead of
if
playing
you're
baseball, you don't have enough people to play.
if you're a fine tennis player, it's not. I played tennis for my whole life. I started when I was very, very young, and I got to be a pretty good player, and not at the level that you're talking, but I was pretty good player, and taught tennis for a little while and all that. And tennis is a sport, pickleball is a game. That was the best way that I could describe it. And pickleball is very democratic. Anybody can pick up the game and have fun in a half an hour. Tennis, it takes a couple of years before you can get the ball to consistently go back. It's just not the same thing. But I do.
Yeah, I feel like I'm sweating more when I'm playing tennis too.
Absolutely.
When I'm playing somebody almost half my age, but
yeah.
But for me, it's about keeping my heart pumping and not feeling dying. So
I think it's great. I mean, I appreciate what it takes to keep that game going, because I played up until about played a lot up until about 10 years ago, and then uh I don't know why I know why I stopped playing because I used to play with my ex-wife. And when that when that all changed, I guess my social obligations changed with it. But listen, man, this has been really fun. It's been really
Yeah,
fun. I admire
always
you.
good talking to you, Bob.
I admire you. I respect you. I appreciate your values so much. Um, we need more guys like you in this country. We
Well,
really do. I mean, in the world, actually. But
yeah.
you're really I think it's tremendous what you've done, and I don't mean to embarrass you. Well, actually, I do mean to embarrass you. Get used to it.
Well, I mean, for me, the whole thing is about bringing people together too. Like
Yeah,
one of the fun things that I have, and I'll keep it short, but one of the fun things about when we do shows is I end up with friends of mine who come from different parts of my life from all over the country. And now I see them all interacting as friends too, because of we brought everybody together through music, through wine,
right.
through food, through that communal process of getting together with people that you love and enjoying the fruits of our labor, and that that is the most fun thing. Somebody I grew up with in Illinois
Mhm.
is now friends with Howard Paul. Different worlds coming together because of music, because of Benedetto, because of wine, because of people need more of that, more community.
What are you reading?
I just got a book of poems by Louise Gluck that is fascinating, and I'd never heard of her before. A crazy friend of mine who's was went to high school with us in Orange County and now lives in Portugal, and he's kind of a savant. Turned me on to this woman, so I just bought a pretty thick book of her poems, and
Wow.
and she was, I think, the poet laureate of the U.S. at some point, and I've never read her, never even heard of her, so I love that.
I'm done, buddy. I can't top that. But tell me her name again. Louise?
Her name is Louise Gluck, Glu with an umlaut
Yeah,
CK.
UCK. Well, Louise, wherever you are,
I think she just passed, and maybe that's why he was posting some of her stuff,
right.
and I'm like, I've never read. I mean, I have a degree in English lit and American lit, and I'd never even heard of her. So
Well,
everybody's ignorant, just on different subjects.
we're talking about guitars, wine, poetry. Been a good morning. Been a good morning. Bob Bakert for Jazz Guitar Today with Dave Miner. Dave, let's continue this conversation another time.
Over a glass of wine.
I appreciate that. See you, buddy.
Thanks, Bob.
Bye bye now. Bye.
See ya.